That was an incredible new video from Boston Dynamics of their Atlas robot. It can run and jump over objects. The growing influence of artificial intelligence being felt in numerous aspects of life. The White House yesterday held a major summit on AI, announcing the creation of an AI task force. Our next guest was at the summit. Joining me now is Accenture CTO Paul Daugherty. Paul, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. It's
so
great
first,
to be here.
Tell us about the summit yesterday and this new task force.
Yeah, well, just by way of context, there's a lot of dazzling technologies today. We just saw Boston Dynamics, but artificial intelligence is the biggest trend. We call it the alpha trend. It's going to have a bigger impact across industries than desktop computing or the internet, and really reshape the way we work and live. And this isn't just about Silicon Valley. It's about every industry, which is why the summit yesterday was important, because it convened leaders across many industries, along with the right academics and the right agencies, to have a dialogue about what change is coming and how we prepared for it, what more do we need to do.
So was there a fear in anything said yesterday in terms of these robots taking jobs, being able to do more than humans, or even, I don't know, working against humans?
Yeah, well, that's one of the issues that we have to deal with. And the view, I think, the view that I certainly have, and I've written a book on this called Human Plus Machine, is that from the work and research we do, we see a future where humans are empowered by machines and working with machines, that this enhances our productivity and really creates new jobs, new industries, new industry sectors, and new jobs. And we have a lot of research showing why we believe this is to be true. But the fear that we have is in the short and medium term, there will be displacement as certain jobs are automated by artificial intelligence. So the real issue that we have to face is not the lack of jobs, because we have lots of jobs today, but we have the issue of how do we give people the relevant skills and reskill people fast enough to be prepared for these new jobs.
Hey, Paul, that's what I was going to kind of ask you. How do we get people ready for skills for America's future? It's something that I think there's millions of jobs right now in STEM that we just can't fill, and it looks like this is just going to be a growing trend, as you said, in the short term. How do we fast forward to fill that gap?
I think there's a few things we need to do. There's obviously the K through 12 system, and there's been good progress there, but we need to really transform and accelerate the progress K through 12 through efforts, code.org and many other efforts like that. Higher education. We just saw Carnegie Mellon University this week announce the first program in the nation, a degree program in artificial intelligence. We need more programs like that to crank out the right specialists who can develop AI. And then we need a new focus that we don't have enough of today around reskilling people in the middle of their careers, in the middle of the workforce. We had some good discussion on that in the meetings today with some creative new ideas from the business leaders present about how do we start some new programs, how do we get more apprenticeships in place, how do we use things like Pell Grants in different ways so that we can give people the tools they need to continuously learn and reinvent themselves and get the right skills over the course of their career. And those are the kinds of programs that I think between business and the public sector we need to come together more on to make sure all people benefit as we move to this new era.
Paul, that's a great answer, but I'm just going to have a follow-up. I mean, these private institutions, those are $70,000 a year for kids. Okay, how do we get the community schools and just regular training? You know, when we grew up, people were doing a lot more work with their hands and more physical labor. Today, they have to be more technologically literate. How do we bring that to where someone doesn't want to go to college, but they want to still learn those skills?
Yeah, as we watch robots on an assembly line.
I'm just saying, it's great what Carnegie Mellon did, and, I'm a Penn guy, and it's great what some of these Ivy League schools are doing. That being said, at $70,000 a year, we have to make sure that everyone can learn these skills.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I feel strongly about that. We talked about that a lot yesterday. That's where I mentioned apprenticeships. That's where apprenticeships come in, which is a new way for people to enter the workforce. We can revitalize the role of community colleges in this process to get people in their communities with the different forms of education and different onboarding into career paths. There's opportunity for other non-traditional forms of learning academies, organizations like General Assembly and others who are preparing people in very different ways. And then I think we need other community-based platforms, online learning capabilities that anybody can access anytime. It's a good question. I certainly don't believe the whole answer is higher ed. I think for most people, we need these alternative learning platforms and alternative education vehicles to get people into the workforce and take those already in the workforce and reskill them in the right way. And that's something we're very committed to at my company and really investing in with our community partners.
Yeah, well, all the while, Gary B. Smith, while China is trying to compete here and trying to get the upper hand, because they're transferring technology in this important industry.
Exactly. But Maria brings up kind of an interesting point here. Whenever I hear the government has convened a task force, I get worried. Paul, why does the government need to be involved with this? When I came out of graduate school and I went to work for IBM, I knew nothing about computers. I knew nothing about programming. I didn't know anything about selling. And IBM took on all that and trained me over 18 months. Why did the private sector just take care of the needs that they have?
Yeah, no, I think that's what's happening already. I think the private sector is taking care of a lot of this, and I agree with you. We need to keep doing that. However, when you look at AI and what's happening, when you look at what China's doing, or France, or Germany, or other countries, we clearly have a very different system here. And I think we're clearly in the lead today with artificial intelligence, with everything we've done in the U.S. across all the dimensions we talked about. But I don't think what we've done today guarantees the future leadership for us. There's more we need to do. And I think it comes down to a coordinated agenda that we all need to work on that focuses on innovation in R&D, more coordinated fashion, focuses on these workforce challenges that any one company can't solve, and we need to come together across public and private sector to deal with these education and skilling challenges. And then finally, deal with issues around responsible AI, which is new issues introduced by AI, around how do we make sure we deal with the bias and ethics and responsible use of the technology in the right way. So there are issues that are bigger than any one company, I think bigger than the private sector, to make sure we work together on and come up with the right answers.
All right, Paul, great to have you on the program this morning. I don't know. I'm looking at this video, and I think it's scary. Well, I'm sort of happy that there's a task force in government dealing with this.
I was just going to add, I think the task force was really people in Washington who have no idea about artificial intelligence, so they just called the meeting. So it was like an educational get-together for these guys to be there.
Why not? If this is an industry that we're seeing, take jobs, and we're seeing all of this technology, taking over, why not have a task force?
Because I worry whenever the government gets involved, the barnacles start growing around the industry and dragging it down to a lower level.
You want markets. You want the market to take.
Exactly.
But also one thing Paul mentioned ethics and morality. You've already seen what happens at Facebook when you don't address those things at the beginning of a company. As it grows, as it explodes, they never dealt with the issue of privacy, and then it came back to bite 2 billion people in the face who were on that platform. So they're trying to get a jump on it with AI.
That's a really good point.